When a country collapses, everything is supposed to crash with it. Stocks crash, the currency dies, real estate becomes worthless, and most people assume Bitcoin should crash too. But what if the opposite is happening? What if every time a nation falls apart, Bitcoin doesn't die? It actually goes up. And what just happened in Venezuela might be the clearest proof of this impossible pattern. I'm not asking you to just believe my words. In this video, I'm going to show you the charts, the dates, and the crises, so you can decide for yourself whether Bitcoin really feeds on collapsing countries. Recently, the United States didn't just attack a political leader, it went after Venezuela's money. Assets linked to the regime were frozen or seized. Oil revenue, foreign reserves, and bank accounts abroad were suddenly under someone else's control. On paper, that sounds like it only hurts the people in power, but in reality, it always leaks down to everyone else. When a government loses access to its own money, it has fewer dollars to pay for imports, less room to defend its currency, and more pressure to print. That means more inflation, more shortages, and more fear for normal people who did nothing wrong. So this isn't just a political story at the top. It's a financial shock that quietly tells every Venezuelan and every investor watching from outside, if they can freeze a country's money this fast, how safe is mine really? Now let's leave the narratives aside and look at the numbers. Here is Bitcoin's price around the time this Venezuela story exploded globally. What you would logically expect is simple. Massive political risk, fear, uncertainty, Bitcoin should dump with everything else. But look at what actually happened. Instead of collapsing on bad news for a country, Bitcoin held its ground and then pushed higher. No, I'm not saying Venezuela alone made Bitcoin moon. But this is the first crack in the story we've been told, that chaos and collapse are automatically bad for Bitcoin. The market is quietly telling you something different. When trust in governments and banking systems goes down, interest in an asset outside that system starts to go up. If you want, you can pull up the same charts on any public site, check the dates yourself, and verify everything I'm showing you. Venezuela is not a one-off glitch. It's just the latest example in a pattern we've seen for years. Take Argentina. Every time the peso melts, every time the government tightens capital controls, Bitcoin in Argentine pesos explodes to new highs. Not because Bitcoin became magically better overnight, but because the local currency became dramatically worse. Look at Lebanon. When banks literally locked people out of their own savings, peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading and stablecoin usage spiked. People were desperate for any money that the local bank manager couldn't shut off. Go back even further to Cyprus. When the government decided to take a cut of people's bank deposits to save the system, Bitcoin demand surged globally. For the first time, millions of people realized, the money in my bank is not really mine. It's a permissioned IOU. Over and over again, the same thing happens. A country breaks its promise to its citizens. Trust in the banking system dies. And Bitcoin, or at least the idea of money outside the state, suddenly looks a lot more attractive. So why does Bitcoin often go up when countries fall apart? When a crisis hits, governments have only a few tools. They print more money. They freeze accounts. They restrict how much you can withdraw or send abroad. And in extreme cases, they just take a piece of what you thought was yours. What do people do in response? First, they run to dollars. Then they look for offshore accounts, foreign real estate, gold. But in the last decade, a new exit door appeared: Bitcoin. A form of money where no central bank can print more to save itself. No local politician can freeze it with a phone call. And no foreign superpower can simply seize it from a New York or London bank. Every time a country collapses, a small percentage of people wake up to this. They move a part of their savings outside the traditional system. They tell their friends. The narrative spreads. And that is why, on a long enough timeline, crises and collapses can actually be bullish for Bitcoin. Venezuela is not just a tragic story about one country. It is a preview of how financial power will be used in the 21st century. The more governments weaponize the banking system, the more they freeze and seize assets to punish enemies or control citizens, the stronger Bitcoin's core story becomes. A form of money that does not depend on any single government. You don't have to love Bitcoin. You don't have to buy any. But you should understand the pattern. Every new crisis, every new capital control, every new emergency measure creates a few more people who say, I want at least some money the state can't touch. So I'll leave you with this. Do you think future crises will keep making Bitcoin stronger? Or do you believe this is just a temporary bubble reacting to news? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading and replying to the early ones. And if you want to understand more of the hidden systems behind money and power, then subscribe to Limitless tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and check out the next video on your screen.